that heads up. But you're exactly right. We're looking for those cold spots. But you should be able to see me, red, orange, and yellow guy. That means I'm the warmest thing in there. That's the way it's set up. So white hot, black cold. We're looking for blue and black to either take shape or to start moving on its own. We're always going to have blue and black if we have a person in reference. But again, that's kind of what we're looking for is this thing to take shape with the head, shoulders, moving arms and legs. You guys watch the TV shows, you get where I'm going. I also have it set up to where there's a blue dot bouncing around the screen. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but that blue dot is showing you the coldest spot in the frame at that particular moment. So I'm looking for 15 plus degree temperature drops when I'm spot checking this video. So it's about 81, 82 degrees ambient for us out here. I would say 81 for the sake of argument. So I'm going to be looking for 66 degrees and colder out of that. So if I find it, I'll give you the marker and the screenshot of where I found it, making sure that it is not a sign, a can on the ground, aluminum. You guys are getting the point. So this one, Tim, you're going to handle. So welcome to parking lot. Congrats, you made it. And just so you know, most people will like do one ear on, one ear off. It's up to you however you want to do it. So this is a weird space. The other ghost tours aren't coming here because there is nothing to see. We're fortunate that there are no cars in here and that it's a rando Monday, so we're gonna have the whole space to ourselves. But anyway, this is Hannah, by the way. This is where I start with holding information. I will not be giving you questions here, like what color was George Washington's white horse? Like what we did over there with the big red barn. You're going to get the answers from your spirit box. With this location, I'll cover the history, and then we'll all of us will do a lap. I'll kind of separate from you guys. We'll stay within the space, just so I can get some readings and see what we got going on. And then I'll regroup us and give us all of the answers so you guys can see how it all ties together. The number 11 is actually tied to this space. So here's what goes on here. You're at the Eliza and Charles Pinckney mansion site. Their mansion sat in the front of the space facing East Bay Street. Eliza's garden was lined up with Five Church Restaurant, came all the way across. We are standing in the servants and slave quarters for the home. That's the layout of the land. Who the hell were these people? Charles and Eliza had a son named Charles. They had a nephew named Charles. That's 3 Chucks. That's why we look for secondary clues. If you hear the name Charles, I need to know which one it is so I know how to address them. That's why we look for those clues. Anyway, the son and the nephew, signers of the Constitution for South Carolina. Big deal for South Carolina. I hate politics more than both of you combined. We're going to move on. If I don't give the gentleman that recognition, they will do it for me in a nasty manner through her spirit box. So I just learned to give it to them, and we move on. We're going to talk about Eliza. She marries Charles at a young age according to today's standards. I say it slowly because if you're going to ask her how old she was, do not expect numbers from the colonial times and young ladies got married at like 12 and 14. Think of today's standards because the husband was over double her age when they married. So it's part of the reason why I always ask like who's standing in front of me, because it was a creepy age gap back then, it's a creepy age gap now. So I'm like, I don't know who the heck you guys are to each other. That's why I was like, what's the relationship? He's like, oh, I'm glad you asked now. But anyway, so she married him because her father was over in England. Dad thinks he's dying. He's trying to bring all his children home to England so he can see him one last time. Eliza didn't believe he was dying, so she stayed put right here and got married. It's 1744. You don't get married in that year to earn a green card. We're not a country yet, so it's no such thing. So she did marry him out of love. This is a true love story. If anything else, nothing horrific about this location. It's just haunted as hell. And she was correct. Dad did not die right away. And instead, he starts sending her gifts from England to where you're standing. One of those gifts happened to be the plant seeds of indigo. It's a plant, makes blue dye that makes your blue jeans blue. Nobody is wearing it tonight. I don't have one prime example. But anyway, when she got her seeds, no idea what to do with it. We're just going to move back. She had to learn from her servants and slaves how to keep it going. It's not always hot here. And then she moved it to a cash crop, got a hold of her father, and told him that the rice plantations were going downhill. They were going to make a killing with the indigo. She was correct, because now we have an international businesswoman during colonial times, something absolutely unheard of. Now, that's the boring business stuff of Eliza. Let's get into the weird shit, because that's why you guys showed up, right? So I'm going to give you a set of focus questions. So the focus questions you can either say out loud, or you can just focus on them. No right or wrong way to do it. We're the only ones here, and I'm here just about every night. It's not like she doesn't know what you're about to ask. So I will tell you that I'm going to be focused on the mansion, only because it's not here anymore. So I always ask her, when I'm just using this one little device, like, what happened to it? Tell us what happened, and then give us the date. I can tell you that the number 11 is part of that date. So keep in mind that you might be asking questions, I might get the answers, Dad might get the answers on the audio of his camera or my voice recorder. We never know where it's going to go. That's why we use so many different devices, even with a small group like this. But your focus questions are going to be wrapped around her death. So she's pretty open about it. How old was she when she died? You can ask her that. What she died from, where she's buried, and which president was a pallbearer at her funeral. So those are like 4 majors. If you go rogue, just be respectful. Don't ask about her children. Like, that's the only thing. But yeah, we'll kind of spread out a little bit. I want to get some readings from this place because I actually wasn't out last night. needed to take a day off, so I'm going to take a quick round just to kind of see what's going on and see what kind of readings I can get. You're already recording, and when she starts shouting stuff out, help her remember, so when we meet up again, I can write all this stuff down. I like the number 11 already. We're already on it. Screamed out anything yet? This thing went all the way up to 47.
Anything, Hannah?
All I heard was my grandmother.
Okay.
Been there once in my life and I'll never go back there.
I just noticed the back of your shirt.
Oh yeah, that was from the one time we went there. I'm not a fan of Myrtle Beach.
I'm not either. That's where I lived before here.
Yeah, it's I don't know.
Call it Dirty Myrtle.
Yeah, that's what everybody calls it, Dirty Myrtle. I don't know. We were there and we didn't even stay our entire stay there before we came down here because
That's impressive.
yeah, it's a strange place. This is
Very
just
Ripley's, as I like to call it.
yeah, exactly, with the cheesy boardwalk and yeah, rude people, and it's just not Charleston, that's for sure.
Yeah. Whole different world down here.
Yeah, it is.
I lived in Myrtle Beach for about a little over 4 years before I came down here.
Yeah.
I've been down here about 8.
Yeah.
So I'm not going back.
No, we're moving down here in a few years.
I came down here from Ohio.
Yeah.
That's where I'm originally from.
Yeah, we're going to be a couple more years. We'll be down here. They're just about done with school, and then we're coming down.
Run?
Well, we're not running. What else did you get? Not an easy task, is it?
No, it's hard because some of the songs I recognize, so it's like I know, like they don't mean anything, but it's like
Well, you don't know that. I'm
Yeah.
withholding a lot of information.
yeah,
And it's not a matter of like who's singing it. You're getting that, right?
yeah. It's like I know like the rest of the lyrics, and I'm like, no, I'm thinking
Too far ahead.
too far ahead. Yeah.
Sit down with school. How old is she?
She's finishing law school, and my younger daughter is finishing her master's in education. So once they're done, they're coming down here, and then we're going to come down shortly thereafter. She thinks about Savannah only because if she takes a New York bar, she can practice in Georgia and North Carolina,
Yeah.
just not South Carolina. Apparently, it's a different type of law here. So
Oh, yeah, I
she's
know that one.
going to
Definitely.
talk to her counseling center to see what she would have to do to be able to practice here as well, besides taking another bar exam.
This is a whole different realm of old school laws.
Yeah, that's what she said. She calls it something, and I don't know. New York's a bummer place to live. Expensive and cold.
Well, it's expensive here, but at least we don't have too much cold.
Yeah.
Charleston's definitely on the pricey side. It's probably not New York pricey, but are you guys like in New York City?
No, we're in Buffalo, the other side of the state, the decent side of the state. But we, I don't know, I don't have a huge house, and we pay $8,000 in property taxes. So that's a big
Is that
nut
per
to-
year?
per year. It's a pretty big nut to knock off every year, just in property taxes.
So let's see, like the average home here, you're looking at maybe 1,700 square foot. I think the average right now is around like 350. Property taxes, I couldn't tell you, but I know like they tax the hell out of our cars here.
Yeah, well, we just back in the day, what our house was valued at, my wife sent our mortgage payment down here to real estate agents. They started sending us $600,000 houses, and trust me when I tell you, we don't live in a $600,000 house at the time. Now the values have surged so high in
Right.
Buffalo because there's nowhere to buy. But at the time, those houses were 3 times what we owned, and the mortgage payment was the same, and it was all based off of how much our property taxes were.
Wow.
So, if she told me, she said, all I do is send our mortgage payment, this is what they're sending us. I said, well, I'm going down there, I don't want to be working, so I don't want to have a $600,000 house. I don't need that.
So my house in Ohio that I had before I moved here, we're talking 12, 14 years ago, lost track. I mean, my house cost me $52,000.
Yeah.
My house payment was like $250. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, and I had a 4-story home. Like,
Yeah.
it was an old house. I mean, it was above ground basement, full-size attic, so 4 stories. Elevator, gas bill to heat the place because it's in Ohio.
Yeah.
But yeah, 52 grand.
Yeah.
I mean, that house down here, I mean, you're looking at least, I would say, probably 400.
Yeah. Yeah, our house there at the time when we built it was 225,000, but we live on almost an acre of land, and now we just got it assessed. It's almost 600,000. That's how much houses have gone up because there's nowhere to live.
What do you got?
Nothing.
I mean, nothing. You gotta have something in there.
It was like things will like linger on certain channels for a little bit longer, but they don't mean anything. It was like, oh, these words were spoken by Winston Churchill. And I'm like, there's nothing that relates.
But you don't know that there's a family member named Winston here.
Is there?
No, but you don't know that.
That they keep going back to Stick Season by Noah Kahn.
But I'm still gonna I'm gonna write down Winston Churchill, just because it's a very specific name.
Yeah.
And at this point, you also said my grandmother earlier. I
Yeah.
don't know that Eliza didn't have a grandson named Winston,
Yeah.
like down the line.
Yeah.
So, see where that can actually kind of fall into play?
Yeah.
It's all this. It's the silliest things that you're like, no, that doesn't mean anything. Those are usually the things that stick.
So should I be looking for things that linger or like?
You should be looking for nouns, names,
Okay.
numbers.
Yeah.
Like that's really what you're after. So we'll kind of give you another 2 or 3 minutes on there and kind of see what we can get in.
Okay.
That's why I love this space to start off with because it's always active. So I know she's missed things in real time. That's fine. But when she tells me like, oh, I only heard Winston Churchill. You heard Winston Churchill? Like, that's a big deal. Like I gotta research that. I gotta see if there's a Winston or a Churchill or something involved. Yeah, this thing has been like almost flat zeros this whole time we've been standing here. Those don't ever stand still. Just kind of hoping if she would have came over, she would have had something right away. But yeah, I'm renting right now only because we're gonna have to move to Florida. My wife is finishing up school and we're gonna have to go down there. So that's why we haven't like purchased anything
Yeah.
here in South Carolina. But I mean, I'm living on about an acre of land right now, but I live an hour from here. You know,
Yeah.
I know what I pay in rent, and I know that the owner, that's where he grew up. It was his grandmother's house, so it's
Yeah.
well paid off. But of course, I looked up the value, and it's probably sitting at about $450.
Yeah.
So just because of the land and where it is, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And it's
Yeah.
just an old, and it's right on a lake too. That was the other perk for us, was there's no neighbors. Like,
Yeah.
no neighbors.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's really nice. We lived in the suburbs for a little while and absolutely hated it because they're building so much here. So,
Yeah, I know. Everywhere you go, there's new. That's because everybody wants to move here.
yeah.
It's
So when
crazy.
you guys move down here, look further out.
Yeah, we're looking at James Island because it's kind of
Yep.
quiet right now,
Yeah.
but it's starting to build. So
James
we're,
Island is still really nice though. So
Yeah.
I mean, if you like to fish and you like to be near the water, like that's a
Yeah.
good area to be. I'm not into those things. So if I want a beach day, which I might have one or two a year, I'll drive the hour just to go to the beach for the day.
Yeah.
But like me living out like basically in the middle of the woods right now, like that's perfect. I'm a writer.
Yeah.
I like my peace and quiet. You know what I mean? I got my dogs, wife is at work. I'm good.
Yeah.
Like leave me alone. Like that's the way I like to be.
Yeah.
But I'm living in the suburbs and I got a neighbor on top of my property. I'm like, this is ridiculous. So,
Yeah. Yeah, that's why we moved where we did, give us a little bit of space, but
Yep. All right, now
Okay,
we
I got project,
okay.
an opinion, 717, beautiful women, and everywhere.
Oh, now I'm getting numbers again. So the 717 could be a date. So I don't know how that's going to look yet. It's just interesting pieces, just like how it fell together. With the beautiful women, when Washington visited here, they had a ball for him, and he talked about how beautiful the women of Charleston were. So that's what sticks out in my mind there. If it falls on July 17th, I might shit a brick for you. But you can kind of see where like my brain goes. I can't verify any of that right now, just in the top of my head. But again, at least I have the research where I can go back and take a look. We are going to call this because this reading's like they pretty much died off. They went super high, and then it just kind of trailed off to nothing. So we'll kind of go off to the wayside over here. I'll kind of explain all of the answers for you, and it'll kind of show you how all this stuff starts to piece together. I think you're already starting to get it, like how my brain's operating. Oh, most of James Island, from what I understand, is mostly like a single story, which is also nice. Like that's something me and my wife look for. She's
Yeah.
disabled, so
Oh.
that's kind of one of the things. Like, oh, we could go to James Island, and I'm like, yeah, I really don't want to go down there.
Yeah. Yeah, we looked at it last year, and my wife's pretty locked on it. She likes it because it is starting to up and come, but it's not overpopulated yet.
Yep. Just during our peak seasons of like summertime, like it just gets jam full. So just
Yeah.
kind of keep that in mind. A lot of people in and out,
Yeah.
heading down to Folly and that kind of thing. So you see a lot of that traffic.
Yeah.
But Daniel Island is also very nice, but very what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, high society. Like
Yeah, I
Daniel.
don't want that.
It's very high society, but it is gorgeous there. Like it is
Yeah.
its own little island, its own little city kind of thing. This is the way we look at it. But anyway, let's kind of cover these answers so you kind of know what the hell you're looking at. So again, we got all the way up to a 48. You can hit that stop button, by the way. So we got all the way up to about a 40 about it. Hopefully we get something out of it. So I got your well, mother 1017. Anything else that popped up out of there?
Not really, like down here it said first walk.
I got the word market. Looks like we were walking through that area when that came up. So that's vaguely, we were actually talking about the market just now, on what that conversation was. But here's what happens here. Every tourist comes down here. It's a staple. But we all tell the same story. I'm just going to give you a few extra details and be quick about it because, again, I'm just here to stir shit up so we can leave. The only reason why this guy follows me around is because his story's been told for like the past 50 years. I'm the first one that has the gear where we can talk back to him and he can communicate with us. He'll show up randomly throughout the night from here moving forward. A doctor moves here from Rhode Island. His name is Dr. Joseph Brown Ladd. If the song Brown Eyed Girl shows up while we're here, not coincidence, we get it all the time. It's part of his name. Just him letting us know that he's listening in. Anyway, he moves here because he's supposed to get married to his fiancée, Amanda Amanda just inherited a lot of money from her dead parents. She has an attorney helping her out with all of that cash. The attorney thinks that Dr. Ladd is just after Amanda's money, so he tells Amanda to get rid of the doctor. Doc comes down here to Charleston to prove that he's not after her money, he's going to make his own. And on his way into town, he had a coachman that set him up to be robbed and killed. It was like having a bad Uber driver today. But somebody was walking by and seeing what was about to happen, and his name was Ralph Isaacs. I say his name slowly because he has the same initials as where the doctor came from. So, Ralph Isaacs, Rhode Island. We were getting RI all the time on a spirit box, so I bought that Envoy device. Have you guys seen that? Where it gives you the letters, like a little Ouija board? So, it's a newer device. They just invented it like 2 years ago, but it gives you letters anytime there's an EMF spike. So it'll give you the letters instead of the numbers. But we've had RI about 7 or 8 times in the past year that I've had it. So kind of relevant, but it's only around Ralph's name. Back to Ralph. He tells the doc, dude, you don't want to stay here. This guy's going to try to kill you. He's like, I got friends at 59 Church Street. They'll rent your room and you'll be safe. Well, the doc took him up on the offer. They became friends. The longer the doctor stays here, he's got his medical practice going. He's making his own money. He's doing pretty well. Amanda got wind of this. She's moving down so they could be married. Dr. Ladd became known as the Whistling Doctor. He's a happy guy. So this is the reason why I hate the story. It's a giant cliche. No matter what haunted city you're ever going to visit, we all have a cliched whistling ghost. This one just happens to be a doctor. There's some legitimacy here. I'm going to get to it. Dr. Ladd, well, this is Dueler's Alley. At least that's what it used to be called. It's Philadelphia Alley now. But we're here because Dr. Ladd and Ralph go see plays together, but they can't sit next to each other because of the hierarchy of Charleston. Dr. Ladd makes more money, therefore better seats. That's how it went. So on their way home from seeing Richard III, they're arguing over the new actress they just saw. Doc thought she was great. Ralph didn't. Then Ralph was insulting the doctor's fiance back home in Rhode Island. It got really ugly. They went their separate ways. But Ralph went to his friends at the newspaper and basically asked them to place an ad telling them the whole city of Charleston what he thinks of the doctor. Kind of a you're a disgrace to society kind of bullshit in the newspaper. Everybody read it, including the doctor. And he rebutted with, let's go to Dueler's Alley. We're going to settle this. Keep in mind, this whole argument started over an actress. I just like to point out how dumb she was back in the 1700s. So anyway, they came down here back to back. They took 10 paces away. They turned, and Doc points his gun in the air, and he shot. His only shot. He didn't want to kill his friend. Just needed the courage to show up. But Ralph has his one bullet, and he puts it in the kneecap on the doctor. Doc didn't die. Ralph proved his point. He's still pissed. Not willing to forgive him. Doc's friends picked him up, took him home, 59 Church Street. He dies 10 days later, November 2nd of 1786, after refusing medical treatment. Two things. It's 1786. Gunshot wounds, a lot different back then than what we know of them now. Secondly, he is a doctor. He probably just thought he had lead poisoning and tried to bleed it out himself. But he failed because obviously he died. They're all telling their guests to listen for the whistles after their story is over. We have one camera, my voice recorder running. If we're going to capture a disembodied whistle through that noisy-ass air conditioner, it's going to be on one of our 2 devices. However, your spirit box, dozens upon dozens of times, I'm spot checking it, and I get the whistling part of a song, and then the word doctor immediately after from a commercial. It happens all the time. I don't look for it. So just take that for what it's worth. Now it's going to stop. So if you're going to try this on your own, I don't know how much longer you guys are staying here, but even when you guys move down here, walk down here with your voice recorders and see if you can capture them later. Just remember, every local knows the damn story. Anybody walking up and down Cumberland or Queen Street, we all throw a whistle down this alley. It's just something we do. Let me tell you how I got booted out of here. I can't take you all the way through. Here's why. Right about where we're standing, there used to be a wall right here going this way. The reason why is this used to be called Cow Alley. That was before Dueler's Alley. That's where they kept all the cows, goats, and chickens down here. That's how it got its name. That means they started down there and worked their way over here. Those bricks down on the other side, you kind of already heard about this. Those are sun-dried bricks from slave children. There's a full handprint from a slave child down there, along with some fingerprint swipes from others. So I used to take my groups all the way through for a history lesson because that kid's not there. That's the last place you're going to find him. Just like in a cemetery, the headstone bit, we already talked about that. So November 26th of 2020, I took my entire group down there for their history lesson, and we can just quickly move on, just kind of point it out, and they all stop, and they all wait for something to happen with their devices. I know nothing's going to happen, shooing them along. We're also standing outside the dining room window of the beautiful mansion at the end of the alley. The new owner of that mansion was pretty pissed off. I was just trying to be respectful and move us along, but we were out of bounds, so I was in the wrong. I just didn't know it. I was still new at this. So we moved on, and my daughter, by the way, thought it was hysterical. She was on the tour that night, and she's about 12, 13 years old, and Dad's getting yelled at. It was great for her. She was all about it. So the next day was Thanksgiving. I don't tour on holidays because I worked in upper management for Walmart before I started doing this. You guys fight over towels on Thanksgiving. You scarred me for life. I don't do Thanksgiving ever again. The next day, I called my partner, the 28th, and I asked him what to do because I'm trying to figure out what's my next step here. Like, that's my route. That's the way I go. And he's like, well, he laughed just like my daughter did, and he said, reroute him, dude. Go figure it out. So he didn't care. That's the reason why I don't work with him anymore. But anyway, so I told my group that night, guys, I don't get into the next story because I've never had anything happen over there, and I'm into vampires, not pirates. I would normally tell you a pirate story next, but we got kicked out of there too. We'll talk about that when we get over there. But before we left, somebody on their spirit box heard the name Anne, and I didn't tell them which pirate we were going to be investigating. The female pirate, Anne Bonny. So it's kind of like, oh shit, cool. So we get up and around the corner. I told them what I did know about pirates because that wasn't my thing. They like give a whole rat's ass about it. But somebody else heard the number 300 out of their spirit box. I didn't know what it meant. I wrote it down. We were there November 28th of 2020. Anne Bonny's trial for piracy was November 28th of 1720. We were there on the exact 300th anniversary of her pirate trial. So it was like, well, hot damn. How's that for craziness? So I was going back there, and the problem for me was pirate stories come from pirate lore. I'm a writer. That's what my master's degree is, in. It's in creative writing. I need facts and data. That's a problem for me if it's coming from lore that was written 100 years after the golden age of piracy. I don't know if you know anything about pirate stories, but that's where they came from. They started in the 1820s and 30s. So not the 1720s, but that's when they were written. So I had to read a shit ton of books to try to figure out what everybody was finding on their spirit boxes to validate it. So I had this half a library at home of nothing but pirate books and how to debunk things and so forth and so on. We'll let them pass through. Just so you know, while we've been standing here, where did it go? Right there.
Cows.
I told you I can't make this stuff up. And by the way, when you guys get your report back from me, there's a list of all the apps that I trust and use, and they're free. So, like, I'm not trying to make money. I just like to make sure you guys are informed. You guys seem like you're very in tune with this, and this way, in case you're not carrying around your extra gear, you can just whip out your phone and kind of use some free shit. But anyway, with this particular location, again, now that it's completely empty, and hopefully we got something going on with our audio pieces that were down here. When we get up and around the corner, we'll kind of go over to the cemetery. We'll swap cameras. I'll give you a night vision camera, and we're going to work with an apparition up there. I'll kind of give you the gist of what goes on with that apparition. And then I'm testing out a new story because I don't always like to tell the apparition story. You'll see why once we get there. But we'll go across the street directly because there's a whole different like fairy tale / parable over there, but it stems from truth. So I've been kind of testing that out when I have these smaller groups like this. So hopefully you guys don't mind that we get to play around with a new story. And it's not always told anymore, which is super interesting to me. And then I'll explain our last two stops because they're completely different. Again, I always like to explain the stops before we get to them because they're all completely different. Anything else that came out of that? You haven't? I don't think it's been on your ears since you got in here.
I listen a little bit, but
that's why we record everything. It's okay. I tell people like I see people like her on and off all night. I'm like, it's fine. We record it. You're gonna get the whole thing back anyway. You might find more shit. I'm gonna find more stuff. So we never know how it's actually going to go. But yeah, we're definitely going to be playing with some different gadgets, like starting with our next stop. So we'll start off with a new camera for you. The spirit box will always be in play, just so you have that idea. Did you have any interest in listening to that spirit box at all?
No, I think it would drive me crazy.
Okay.
Listening to it, when they have them on, when we watch a show and it's a
yeah,
I want to.
Oh yeah, then that's gonna.
Yeah, I want.
Because that has actual voices in it too.
Yeah.
But yeah.
To me, it seems counterproductive having that white noise when you're trying to listen. It drives me nuts.
Oh, well, I think she feels the same way.
Yeah.
She's been on and off with it the whole night.
Yeah,
So,
I think we kind of feel that, like when you watch a show and you're trying to like hear things, and of course they're always like, oh, you hear that, but you can't hear anything. All you can hear is the white noise.
Right.
So I don't like.
Well, the fun part for me is like that's my area of expertise, believe it or not. So like when I'm sitting at the office, I mean, my office is a co-working space. I'm the only one there. Nobody works this late. So I get to sit up there with my earbuds in, and all I'm doing is I'm listening and you know what I mean? And if I find a disembodied voice, because I know what radio chatter sounds like, I can go back and analyze it by the sound waves to see how many stations it went over. Like that's where my stupid
Yeah.
brain really starts to focus in. Like we found a disembodied voice a few nights ago. Again, I only get about 12 to 15 of those a year. So when they come through, I'm excited. This just said a name on it, but the name made sense.
Yeah.
So I was kind of like, and it's not a common name. I was kind of like, oh, that's super badass.
Yeah.
So I was like, that's where like on the TV shows when they start doing it, I'm with you. Like
Yeah.
especially guys like Zach.
Yeah,
That
he's
guy's just
nuts.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's nuts.
Everything's a demon. And
Oh, yeah,
everything.
everything's
Yeah,
a
and
demon.
they're always running around like the Three Stooges, bumping into each other, and
Well, Nick apparently is doing his own thing now.
oh yeah,
Yeah, he's I just had a friend of mine, another investigator that I actually respect. He's like, have you seen Nick Groff's new stuff? I'm like, no, I have no desire to watch that shit. And he's like, you need to watch it. Like, he's grounded.
good.
And I'm like, but he's so Hollywood. Like, every time I see him on social media, he's all about, I'm going to be here signing autographs. Like, I don't give a shit. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I'd rather, like, don't you teach me something since you, have so many years of experience over me. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But that's kind of how I feel about it. But I do this, I guess, more often than the TV show host because I don't just do tours. You know what I mean? Like I go investigating myself, and then of course I have all of my investigator friends that I'll call up if I have a problem or a question. But I'm usually the go-to guy.
Yeah.
Like, so all my social media people, like my phone blows up all the time. Like, have you ever heard this before? Or how do we go about doing that? What's your recommendation on this? Like, I'm usually that guy. But every once in a while, I'm like, I have no idea what to do with this situation, and I'll reach out to somebody that might. But again, that's my issue with spirit boxes too. Is it's very distracting.
Yeah.
We do have one spirit box that we use that's open speaker, so no headphones. And I always tell that person, my ear is trained to listen to that. So if I'm speaking, mute it. Like it's okay. We'll get more stuff from the other recordable one. Your job is like in between when I'm speaking. Oh yeah, Remy's hopping around. He's getting anxious. Yeah, this alley in the summertime, like we got a few Remys. There he goes. That's just a chipmunk.
Yeah.
That wasn't even Remy. Remy's about that long.
Ugh.
He's a big guy.
So how did you get into doing this?
Oh, that's a whole other tour, but short story long. I grew up in an Orthodox home. You don't speak about the afterlife and the paranormal and things like that. So when I turned 18, I just went apeshit nuts. I started like really diving in. And I wrote my first fiction book about the afterlife when I was 19. And now it's just